Bombing the oil refineries in Ploesti, Romania was a high priority in World War II. In August 1943, a bombing raid by 117 B-24 bombers was a disaster. The bombers were detected early and defenses were ready. Smoke screens obscured the target. 54 B-24s and over 500 men were lost, yet within a few weeks the refineries were producing more oil than before the attack. On June 10, 1944, P-38 fighters were ordered to attack from Italy to see if fighters could do the job better. 23 of the 66 attacking P-38s were lost. They hit their targets, but the cost was too high. I will relate a story by American pilots and a story by a Romanian pilot in the same battle. Comparing stories shows how an air battle looks very different from different cockpits. First, the American view. The P-38 fighters took off early, loaded with drop tanks and bombs. They flew as low as they dared to stay under the radar. Following the Danube River, they pivoted northeast around Bucharest, climbed to bombing altitude, and dove on Ploesti. Dive bombing started before the German smoke screens could develop. Just as the first P-38s started their climb to dive bombing altitude, the middle squadron, the 71st, was hit very hard by a good-sized force of enemy fighters. It was jumped at cruising speed, with belly tanks still in place. They could not have been at a greater disadvantage. The 71st was cut to pieces before other squadrons could assist. The 71st lost 9 of their 12 planes in just a few minutes. Overall, P-38s scored 18 victories but lost 23 of their own, including those shot down by anti-aircraft fire. Now, the same battle is told by a Romanian pilot, Dan Vinzanti. On June 10, 1944, the staff of our group proceeded as usual to our headquarters. On this particular morning, we had only 2 groups per squadron ready for takeoff, a total of 26 planes. American air raids had never taken place before 10 a.m., but on this morning, something extraordinary happened. At 8 a.m., the alarm sirens went off. Amazed about the unusual hour, I grabbed my alarm pistol and fired green for my units, the order for immediate takeoff. My aide and I headed for our planes. We took off immediately following the last squadron, cutting across the curve of their ascent to take the lead position in the group. While crossing the flight path of the ascending fighters, I heard in my headset, "Attention Paris, turkeys over the nest." This told me that the American fighter planes, turkeys, were headed toward the airport, the nest. Simultaneously, I could see, at very low altitude, wave upon wave of Lightning fighter planes with twin booms coming from the east, heading straight for our airport. Without hesitation, I radioed, "We attack! Follow me!" In seconds, the tables turned. Instead of the surprise planned by the Americans by flying at the lowest possible altitude, we fell upon them, taking them into a tight squeeze before they could even begin their attack. Our blitz attack was a total surprise for the Lightning fighters. My pilots, like one man, dove down upon the American planes, one after the other. The surprise was unbelievable. Like a thunderstorm, we drove them ahead of us. Our first attack was the decisive one, and it was our luck to shoot down the commander of the unit during the first moments of the fight. Our attack was so fast that not one of the 100 American planes managed to fire a shot at our planes still on the ground. The low altitude at which this fight took place made the battle so difficult. It all took place very near the ground. Completely surprised, half the American planes tried to retreat. By using the technique of circle of defense, they left our area and returned to Italy. With keyed-up nerves, I took in the whole scene of the battle. Excited and proud, I looked down at my good, tough old planes, who came out winners thanks to their extraordinary maneuverability. I watched their crazy dives, their quick rolls, their U-turns and upside-down flights. They fired only very short bursts to conserve ammunition. An indescribable sight, but what a drama for the Lightnings, which, at this low altitude, were definitely the underdogs to our ever-present quick fighters. The people on the ground stood petrified, looking up at the sky. Farmers in the fields, workers in a textile factory, and of course our own technical air-base personnel were all witnesses and spectators of the battle. In the bright summer sunshine, there was a tremendous noise of the explosions, the rat-tat-tat of the machine guns, the whining of the engines, and everywhere the white smoke spirals of the burning, crashing planes. Then sudden quiet, only the droning of the again calmly running engines. A battle of 12 minutes, horribly long for one, unbelievably short for the other. We flew home to land, trying to join again in a closed formation. Such was the way the air battle ended. 24 destroyed American planes were counted in the immediate vicinity of our airfield. Regrettably, only one American pilot survived, the commander of the unit. He had succeeded in getting out of his plane before it exploded. Our ground personnel gave us a triumphal welcome when we landed. They lifted us out of the planes, embraced us, and cried with joy and excitement. After the first excitement subsided, we realized with sadness 3 of our comrades were missing. I noticed with surprise a hole in my windshield where a bullet had entered and gone into the fuselage. The trajectory of the bullet should have taken it through my head. None of us could explain how and by what miracle I was still alive. I find this fact one of the extraordinary and unexplainable events of this day. Okay, now back to today. Bruce Gordon speaking. When I was editor of the First Fighter News, I talked to some of our pilots who had been in the battle. When I showed them the Romanian side of the battle, our pilots were angry. Dan Vinzanti's report of 100 American planes was really only 66 planes, and his 26 fighters engaged only the 12 planes of the 71st Squadron. Dan thought that his airfield was the target, and that he had driven off the Americans. But in reality, the target was Ploesti oil refineries. He said that 24 American planes crashed near his airfield, while we actually lost 23 planes, and only 9 of those were lost near Vinzanti's airfield. These conflicting stories should remind us of the inaccurate reporting that occurs in the fog of war. Post-war data shows that enemy losses were less than half as many as claimed. We should also be humbled by the brave men on both sides who had the spirit of attack and who fought and died for their countries.